What if I told you that 2 hours a day is more than enough to become a straight A student, if you know what to do during those 2 hours? Last year, I studied 6 hours a day and barely passed. This year, I studied only 2 hours a day, and I got straight A's. Today, I'll show you exactly how I did it, and how you can too. Stay until the end, because I'll reveal the 10-minute trick that made the biggest difference. I used to believe that the more you study, the better your grades. Simple, right? The longer I stayed at my desk, the smarter I'd get. So I forced myself into brutal 6-hour study sessions. No breaks, just books, notes, and stress. But here's the weird part. I'd wake up the next morning and forget everything. Like my brain just flushed it all out. I thought I was the problem. Maybe I wasn't smart enough. Maybe my brain just didn't work like other people's. But then I started noticing something. The top students in my class, they weren't the ones hunched over their books 24/7. In fact, some of them barely even looked stressed. That's when it hit me. The real secret to top grades isn't about how long you study. It's about how you study. Most students don't have a study problem. They have a focus problem, a strategy problem. They're stuck in passive mode, rereading, highlighting, rewriting notes, but never actually learning. And I was just like them, burning hours for almost nothing in return. So I asked myself a scary question. What if everything I believed about studying was wrong? That single question started a journey that changed everything. It started with a single failed test, then another. And before I knew it, I was falling behind in every subject. I remember sitting alone in my room, staring at a paper with a big red D on it, and thinking, how is this even possible? I was putting in so much effort. I was studying more than anyone I knew. But somehow, everyone else was passing me. Even the students who scrolled on their phones during class, the ones who crammed the night before. I felt like a complete failure. My self-esteem crashed. I started avoiding eye contact in school. I skipped study groups. I stopped raising my hand in class. Every time I opened a textbook, my chest tightened. I wasn't just burned out, I was broken. And the worst part, I couldn't tell anyone, because no one would understand how it feels to try your hardest and still fall flat on your face. That moment, sitting there drowning in guilt and shame, I told myself, something has to change, or I'm done. And that's when everything shifted. One night, I sat there, textbooks open, notebooks everywhere, and I just froze. My brain was fried. My motivation, gone. And for some reason, instead of forcing myself to keep pushing, I asked a different question. What if? It's not about working harder, but working smarter. That one question flipped everything. I stopped trying to outgrind everyone. I started searching, deep diving into how top performers actually study. Athletes, memory champions, Ivy League students, even CIA language learners. And what I found shocked me. The best students don't study more. They study with systems. Systems that make 2 hours of focused effort more powerful than 6 hours of mindless grind. That night, I threw out everything that wasn't working and began building the strategy that would completely transform my academic life. The first change I made was simple, but revolutionary. I set a timer for 25 minutes. Just 25. No distractions, no phone, just pure focus. When the timer rang, I stopped, took a 5-minute break, walked around, breathed. Then I did it again. 4 of those focus sessions became my daily gold. That's it. 2 hours max. And here's the crazy part. I started getting more done in 2 hours than I used to in 6. Why? Because the brain doesn't learn in marathons. It learns in sprints. I even tested my energy levels and found my best time was late afternoon, when my mind was sharpest. You don't need a 12-hour study day. You need 4 focused blocks at the time of day when you're mentally strongest. The second change was how I reviewed. I stopped reading notes over and over. Instead, I closed my book and started quizzing myself. What did I remember? What could I teach out loud? What questions could I answer without looking? That's called active recall, and it's like a workout for your brain. And then I spaced it out. Instead of reviewing every night, I'd review on day 1, day 3, day 7. That's called spaced repetition, and it locks info into long-term memory. I used this for biology, which was my worst subject. Within 2 weeks, I was acing quizzes I used to fail. Flashcards, whiteboards, speaking out loud. Don't reread. Retrieval beats review. Every time. This one hurt. I used to study with music on, notifications popping up, and YouTube tabs open just in case. But that's not studying, that's pretending to study. So I went full sniper mode, phone on airplane mode, one table, one goal. It felt weird at first, almost too quiet, but the silence became power. I wasn't wasting willpower switching tasks. My brain was locked in. 1 hour of deep focus greater than 3 hours of multitasking. Every single time. Want results? Cut the noise. Because focus isn't a talent, it's a choice. Finally, the move that turned my short-term memory into long-term mastery. Once a week, I'd sit down for just 20 minutes, that's it. I'd go through my notes, my flashcards, my mistakes, but I didn't just read. I'd write what I learned that week. I'd explain tough concepts in my own words. This became my anchor, a way to reset and solidify everything. And here's the best part. When exams came around, I didn't need to cram. I was already ready. Most students wait until the night before, but I was reviewing while everyone else was panicking. That 20-minute weekly session saved me from hours of anxiety and made my grades bulletproof. Here's the part no one tells you. Your grades don't just depend on what you do while studying. They depend on what you do outside of studying. I used to stay up late, eat garbage, skip meals, and then wonder why I couldn't focus. But once I fixed my habits outside of school, everything changed. I started sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night. I stopped scrolling at midnight. I gave my brain recovery time. I drank more water, took 10-minute walks when I felt foggy, and I started journaling in just 5 minutes a day to get the chaos in my head onto paper. It's funny. We try to study harder while completely ignoring the things that fuel our brain. Want better grades? Sleep, move, eat, breathe. A tired brain can't learn, no matter how good your study method is. The real game changer wasn't just how I studied. It was finally treating myself like someone who deserved to succeed. There's one last thing I added to my routine that skyrocketed my retention, and it only takes 10 minutes. I call it the teach-back technique. At the end of each study session, I'd ask myself, if I had to teach this to someone right now, what could I? And I'd literally teach it out loud. To the wall, to my notebook, to no one. Because if you can't teach it, you don't really understand it. This forced my brain to reorganize and connect the concepts instead of just memorizing facts. That 10-minute trick, it turned passive learning into real understanding. And once I made this a habit, everything became easier. Essays, tests, projects, everything. So, if you're still watching, do this one thing tonight. After you study, close your book and try to teach it out loud. It might feel silly, but it's the most powerful 10 minutes you'll spend all day. So what happened after I started studying just 2 hours a day? I went from failing to getting straight A's. But it wasn't just the grades. I started liking school again. I stopped dreading test days. I actually had free time to do things I love, to hang out with friends, to live. And maybe the best part? I proved to myself that I wasn't stupid. I just needed the right system, the right strategy, and a little bit of faith. So if you're watching this and you feel behind, overwhelmed, or like you'll never catch up, I promise you, you don't need to burn out to succeed. You just need to shift the way you study. And if this video helped you, even just one technique, imagine what could happen if you actually tried it tonight. If you're ready to make the switch, hit that like button, drop a comment, and tell me what your biggest struggle is. I read every single one. And don't forget to subscribe, because the next video might just be the thing that takes you from stressed to unstoppable. Remember, smart studying isn't about doing more. It's about doing what works. And now, you've got the blueprint.